Hello guys, Grotesquely here. Today I'll explain the Facehugger creature in depth and go over its grotesquely disturbing origins revealed in Alien Covenant deleted scenes where David assembled the Facehugger from Elizabeth Shaw's harvested body parts. The Facehugger is a parasitoid stage of the Xenomorph species that hatches from an Ovomorph. It represents the second stage in the Xenomorph life cycle and exists solely to implant a Xenomorph embryo into a living host through the mouth. Despite lacking real offensive capabilities, the Facehugger relies on stealth, surprise, or immobilized victims to achieve implantation. Facehuggers are deceptively strong, possessing extreme strength for their size, often requiring several people to prevent them from impregnating a host. Notably, a Facehugger dies shortly after completing its task. The Facehugger and the egg are technically two separate organisms that exist in complete symbiosis until the Facehugger separates. Ovomorphs or alien eggs are living biopods produced by the Xenomorph queen. Inside, a preformed Facehugger lies folded and still, sharing the egg's tiny blood supply and air pockets, but carrying its own nerves, muscles, and genetic material. When a warm, breathing host comes near, chemical signals rush through the pod's wall, the lid opens like petals, and the Facehugger springs out. Until that moment, the egg functions as a long-term life support case, keeping the parasite in deep sleep. The eggs on LV-426 stayed active for at least 57 years between the alien and the aliens, while the eggs in the derelict ship in the first film may have remained viable for centuries or even thousands of years. Laboratory notes in Alien Covenant state that internal tissues cycle at only 1 heartbeat per hour during dormancy, using stored proteins laid down during growth. As long as the shell stays intact and the ambient air doesn't freeze solid, a Facehugger can wait almost without a limit. The reason Facehuggers are so scary and disturbing is because they combine the fear of spiders with the primal horror of forced oral invasion. Visually, the Facehugger resembles skeletal hands with a spine-like tail and 8 finger-like legs for rapid crawling and leaping. A Facehugger's long, strong digits enable rapid movement and a firm grip on a host's head, making removal nearly impossible and ensuring implantation. Its tail helps in leaping and additional grip, sometimes strangling hosts, and the potent acid blood further complicates the removal. When a Facehugger senses a nearby host that attempts to attach and subdue them, it leaps at the host's face with force and accuracy, wrapping its tail around their neck and digits around their skull. Once secured, it renders the host unconscious with a cyanose-based paralytic chemical causing vivid and distressing dreams. Humans, predators, or similarly sized beings are the most compatible hosts, as smaller hosts like cats are unsuitable. However, larger hosts like engineers can also be impregnated. The Facehugger inserts proboscis down the host's throat to supply air and implant a Xenomorph embryo, a process that takes several hours. However, various theories exist about the implantation process, and the main one states that the proboscis invades the host esophagus to implant an embryo. However, another theory suggests that the Facehugger implants cellular clusters of tumors, prompting the host's body to construct the chestburster internally. The currently accepted theory, however, is that the Facehugger does not implant an embryonic xenomorph. Instead, it deposits a mutagenic substance called Plagiaris prepotens into the host esophagus. This mutagen reconstructs the host cells, causing the body to form the chestburster from its own biological material. While there are no visible signs while the embryo is growing, hosts may sometimes develop fever, sweat, and increased appetite. Alien Romulus expands the creature's behavioral data. Romulus reveals that Facehuggers are extremely durable and can remain dormant once frozen to -25 Fahrenheit for undetermined amounts of time. Once the temperature reaches about 80 Fahrenheit, Facehuggers become functional and start seeking prey immediately. Once a Facehugger leaves the egg, Weyland-Yutani notes state that they have a hard ceiling of about 5 Earth days to live. During that window, a facehugger runs on a fixed glucose and lipid reserve laid down while dormant. Field logs confirm that facehuggers prioritize heat differentials over motion. They detect targets as infrared silhouettes first, audible respiration second, and visual shape last. For example, Rain and Tyler masked themselves by raising ambient room temperature to 37 Celsius and breathing through sponge filters, slipping past the facehugger's nest undetected. Interestingly, Weyland-Yutani researchers on the Romulus station basically 3D printed facehuggers using genetic material retrieved from the big chap Xenomorph, basically completely skipping the egg stage of the Xenomorph cycle. Maybe it was done to cut the screen time, but it kind of undermines the mysterious nature of these creatures. However, it's more likely that Weyland-Yutani actually received David's transmission that can be found in Alien Covenant Blu-ray. The transmission had all the records of the Xenomorph experiments David conducted on the Planet 4. And maybe using some of the David's findings, they were able to bioengineer facehuggers so easily, which leads us to the most disturbing aspect of facehuggers' origins. Alien Covenant reveals that the android David is either the creator of the Xenomorphs and facehuggers, or at least was able to reverse engineer them using the black goo pathogen and Dr. Shaw's body parts. Deleted scenes and scripts depict Dr. Shaw's horrible death and what David did to her. In one deleted scene, he says that I tried so desperately to make her more than human, evolved. But without her cooperation, I had to salvage her parts to begin work on my masterpiece, which is the Xenomorph.
I tried so desperately to make her more than human. Evolved, but without her cooperation, I had to salvage her parts to begin work on my masterpiece.
And it's actually no coincidence that facehuggers' limbs resemble human fingers, and the creature's face is similar to other human organs. Alien Covenant strongly implies that the first facehuggers were assembled from bones, organs, and reproductive tissues of Dr. Elizabeth Shaw, and grown using her eggs and ovaries. The deleted scene shows that David harvested her organs and created a new organism by gluing everything together with a highly mutagenic black goo pathogen that jump-started the newly formed creature and gave it life. The eggs in Alien Covenant are also much larger than those in other films, leading to speculation that David created a separate strain of facehuggers. However, finger-like limbs that even have nails strongly suggest that facehuggers were put together from human body parts, and looks like Elizabeth Shaw was the source material for the first facehuggers. In addition, Alien of 1979 includes a crucial deleted scene in which Brett and Dallas are egg morphing into Xenomorph eggs with facehuggers inside. This scene further proves that facehuggers' origin is rooted in a gruesome exploitation of human bodies. The deleted scene implies that during the egg morphing, human fingers become the parasite's limbs, the spine turns into the tail, then the lungs form the respiratory flaps, and other organs reshape into the parasite's proboscis. While it is possible to remove facehuggers before embryo implantation, the procedure is usually fatal for the host. The facehugger's strong grip, sedative chemicals, and acidic blood make safe removal nearly impossible. If a facehugger detects an attempt to detach it, it will kill the host to ensure they do not survive. However, there have been rare cases of facehuggers failing to subdue a host. In Alien Romulus, Rain managed to remove the facehugger by freezing its tail to prevent it from strangling Navarro, but the creatures still had enough time to impregnate the host. However, on Acheron, Ellen Ripley managed to block a facehugger's attack with her hands, and with immediate assistance from Colonial Marines, she was able to remove it before losing consciousness. Some have speculated that the facehuggers still had enough time to implant an embryo into Ripley, since she was later found to carry a queen in Alien 3. However, later cuts of Alien 3 actually disproved this theory, as it was later revealed that Ripley was impregnated by a facehugger from the egg that the queen hid in the escape module. And that Facehugger was actually a specialized variant, the Royal Facehugger, which has the ability to deposit a queen embryo. Because the Xenomorph is a highly adaptive life form, several other Facehugger variants exist. The Octafacehugger, a deleted creature from Prometheus, was intended to be an early, soft-bodied version of the parasite. This creature was replaced by the Hammerpede, an aggressive organism formed when native worms on LV223 mutated after exposure to the black goo pathogen. The Hammerpede cannot implant a Xenomorph embryo, but is sometimes considered an early iteration of a Facehugger. The egg sacs in Alien Covenant are also a notable variant. They're not a part of the Xenomorph cycle, but rather a one-time occurrence, and they seem to merge the roles of Ovomorphs and Facehuggers. These sacs arose when local plants in planet 4 mutated after exposure to the black goo pathogen released by David. Once the spores are inhaled, they seed a neomorph embryo inside a host. There's also a really interesting and disturbing variant, the trilobite, born from Dr. Shaw after the black goo exposure, and it functions as a giant facehugger, big enough to grapple an engineer. Shaw was initially infertile, however, after Holloway was infected with the black goo, Shaw was able to become pregnant with an alien fetus. It's not clear whether Holloway's seed became more potent or if the black goo simply adapted to Shaw's reproductive system. But within a day, the fetus grew to the size of a baby and looked like an octopus once emerged. Due to the involvement of the black goo, which is also considered an accelerant of evolution, the trilobite massively increased in size in just a few hours. It later attacked the engineer either because he was nearby or because we can speculate the trilobite wanted to protect its mother, Elizabeth Shaw. Once it overpowered the already extremely strong humanoid engineer, it implanted a deacon embryo just like all the other facehuggers. This later led to the emergence of the deacon creature, oddly similar to the creature on the mural, possibly indicating that they are closely related. There are also a few other facehugger variants. In the comics, corporate labs pursued the theoretical alien king by crafting a specialized facehugger capable of male royal genetics. Alien's Rogue depicts a birth of the rogue Xenomorph, sometimes called the king, that immediately challenged its queen creator. However, the project was shelved after the rogue destroyed the facility. Also in the 90s, Scanner's toy line imagined wing-webbed giant facehuggers that could glide or swim, reflecting fan speculation of aquatic or aerial parasites. There is also a notable cross-franchise hypothetical that wonders what happens if a facehugger attacks a necromorph. The Dead Space community argues that the necromorph corpse lacks living tissue for plagiarist prepotence to rewrite, while necrotic enzymes would dissolve facehugger's muscle before attachment. This theoretical crossover highlights a key constraint for facehuggers. The host must be alive, oxygenated, and biologically conventional for the facehugger to achieve implantation. Thank you guys for watching. What do you think about facehuggers, and do you consider them the most terrifying creatures in cinema? Leave your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to join the Patreon for extra support. Also, like this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe to the channel for more content. My name is Croft and I'll see you in the next video.